Alright, let's turn off the display of my normal here. And let's go back into our torus. Move that off to the side here. Oops, I want to be looking here. Alright, so you can see that we have normals pointing perpendicular to our surface. And we also have defined an up vector here in this point stop here. And that up vector is pointing up on the y-axis. We can visualize the up vector here as well. Let's call it up, up, and that's a vector, and the attribute is up. And I'll just make that red for visualization. And let's bring the length scale down quite a bit. Let's say 0.2. So what if we want to do something where we want to rotate these normals, but we'd like to rotate them perpendicular to the surface that they're on, and we want to make sure that the plane of rotation is going to be perpendicular to this up vector here, so that we get this really natural rotation and it makes sense with our surface. Well, we're going to need a cross product here, because essentially what we're going to do is we're going to define an axis of rotation, and that axis is going to be the cross product of our up vector and our surface normal, and then we need an angle in which to rotate along. We can turn off that for now, and let's just put down a new attribute VOP here. We'll go straight in and we'll write out to the copy. We can turn that off. So I'm going to call this rotate perp to up vector. So the first thing let's do is let's define our axis of rotation. We have a normal. We don't have up vector in here, I believe. So we'll have to bring that in. We'll press tab and type bind. We need a vector. That's going to be called up. So we will cross the up vector with the normal and make sure we normalize that. Now that's going to give us an axis of rotation, which is going to be pointing essentially along the lines of our object here. In order to rotate these normals along that axis, we need a special node. We're going to choose an orient. And what an orient does is it allows us to rotate from one direction by a transformation matrix, and it spits out the direction here. So we want to go from our normal, and now we have this input here which is expecting a matrix from us. So we need to create this transformation matrix. I'm not going to necessarily get into all the computer mathematics behind it, but essentially what we need to do is make a quaternion. What a quaternion does is it allows you to rotate an angle along an axis. So we know that's our axis, and the angle is in radians, so we need to make sure that we want to work in degrees. So we'll go from degrees to radians. Radians are measured in pi. Degrees will be 0 to 360. And now we need to convert from this into a matrix. So we'll need a matrix, or quaternion to matrix 3. And we're expecting a matrix 4 in there, so we need another conversion. Do a matrix, where is it here? Matrix to, try that again. Just type in matrix. Matrix 3 to matrix 4. There we go. That goes right into here, and that is going to go into our normals. And degrees, we're just going to promote that parameter. And you know what? Let's make sure that our degrees, our range will go 0 to 360. Or we can even go negative 180 to 180. Whatever feels right. And we probably want our default to be 0. And now you see that we can actually rotate our normals along the geometry in a really cool way. But keep in mind, this has to be done, you have to have 2 vectors to do this because you have to create that axis of rotation. This is a real interesting way of rotating stuff. So remember, you just need to create a direction that you want to rotate, and then you can do this little setup here as well. And why don't we do something a little interesting here? Let's paste that times 0.5. So now what we have is our cubes here just sitting on top of our torus. And the reason that's happening is because we don't have normals, so we'll just give ourselves some normals. Now you can see that they're rotating. So pretty cool. You know, the reason that some of them go different directions is, like I showed you before, in that order of operations. It's just, you're just bringing in random geometry, so you might not necessarily be able to choose exactly which things are going in which order. But if you wanted to just do some random rotation along the surface like that, and you didn't care which way was positive or which way was negative, this is a really good way of doing that. And we'll save this scene and we will move on from here.